Were Adam and Eve real? And do we all actually descend from them? Most people are surprised by the amount of empirical scientific evidence that supports this idea, including the atheists I was engaging with in my last live show, which gave me the opportunity to connect science from multiple disciplines to build a cogent and tenable case that the Bible was right about human origins. If you are an atheist who thinks that the Bible is just a fairy tale, this evidence is going to challenge your beliefs. And if you are a Christian who believes that the Bible is true but isn't sure if science aligns with the biblical account, this information will encourage you. As always, thank you for watching. We descend from incest. That's true. I'm glad you didn't say insects. Insects, like the bugs. Yeah, we're incest creatures, for sure. Yeah, Adam and Eve initially. Then Noah and his family, the 6 of them. And the data bears this out too. Something called Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam. Mitochondrial Eve and Y-chromosomal Adam are the single female and the single male that all humans descend from. This is scientifically proven. And depending on the metric you look at, if you look at the molecular clock and the substitution rate, it actually points to them having existed between 6,000 and 7,000 years ago, which is exactly what the Bible says. Well, the Bible says 7,500, but that's close enough. Genealogical models have also shown that our identical ancestor existed within the last 5,500 to 7,500 years ago. I'm actually going to show you guys something really cool here. This is something that you need to see. People are like, oh, it's incest. Yeah, it is. Okay, this is a Scientific American. This is a very secular source. This isn't creation science. I don't use creation science. A very recent article. This is 2020. Humanity's most recent common ancestor and so-called genetic isopoint illustrate the surprising connections among our family trees. Again, Scientific American. The family tree of humanity is much more interconnected than we tend to think. We're culturally bound and physiologically conditioned to not think about ancestry in very broad terms. Imagine counting all your ancestors as you trace your family tree back in time. In the nth generation before the present, your family tree has 2 whatever slots. 2 for parents, 4 for grandparents, 8 for great-grandparents, and so on. The number of slots grows exponentially. By the 3rd generation, you have more than 8 billion of them. That is more than the number of people alive today, and is certainly a much larger figure than the world population a millennium ago. This seeming paradox has a simple resolution. Branches of your family tree don't consistently diverge. Instead, they begin to loop back on each other. As a result, many of your ancestors occupy multiple slots in your family tree. So, the consequence of humanity being incredibly inbred, right? So the person goes, oh, we're super inbred. Yeah. Whether you believe in the biblical account or you don't, science has shown genealogically that we are incredibly inbred, necessarily. Again, just use this standard thinking. 2 slots for your parents, 4 for your grandparents, 8 for your great-grandparents, and so on. 800 to 1,000 years ago, we would have 8 billion people. That we know that there was far, far fewer than that. So how do you resolve this? Because we're incredibly inbred. Genealogical ancestry loops back on each other. So many of your ancestors occupy multiple slots in your family tree. Your great-great-great-grandmother may have also been your great-great-great-great-aunt, inbreeding. The consequence of humanity being incredibly inbred is that we are all related much more closely than our intuition suggests. Well, that's not true. We're not more inbred than our intuition suggests. Humans have believed for a long time that we descend from one man and one woman. So it's not our intuition, it's science. So basically science was wrong. And so the guy says, oh, we're inbred? Yeah, we are. Rutherford says, take for instance the last person from whom everyone on the planet is descended today. 2004 mathematical modeling and computer simulations by a group of statisticians led by Douglas Rode indicated that our most recent common ancestor probably lived no earlier than 1400 BC and possibly as recently as 55 AD. Nefertiti, someone whom we are all descended, was likely alive somewhere in the world. Go back a bit further, you reach a date. This is very important. This is one of the pieces of evidence in favor of Adam and Eve and us descending from them, which is my claim tonight. Go back and you find a date when our family trees share not just one ancestor in common, but every ancestor in common. At this date, called the genetic isopoint, the family trees of any 2 people on the earth now, no matter how distantly related they seem. Yes, you could be an Inuit, Indian, Papua New Guinea, European, Palestinian, whatever, doesn't matter, American. They all trace back to the same set of individuals. If you are alive at the genetic isopoint, then you are the ancestor of either everyone alive today or no one alive today, Rutherford said. Obviously, they believe that humans left 120,000 years ago, but the genetic isopoint done by genealogic modeling occurred much more recently, somewhere between 5,300 and 2,200 BC, which is 4,400 to 7,300 years ago. According to the Bible, creation was 7,500 years ago. According to the Bible, the flood happened 5,300 years ago. Doing mathematical modeling, the genetic isopoint, where every single person on Earth today is related to the same two people, would have been between 4,400 and 7,300 years ago, exactly in the time frame of the Bible. And we are extremely inbred. We are incredibly inbred. So yes, the person that said we're inbred, that's true. Yep, exactly like the Bible said. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy because we're taught, evolution and hundreds of thousands of years ago, humans blah, blah, blah this, and a million years ago, humans blah, blah, blah that. And then the data comes in and it's like, oh, no, the Bible's right and evolution's wrong. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It's honestly as good. I know, Mocha. It's crazy. Obviously, I'm biased, right? I have a belief system. We all do. I was raised to believe in evolution. I thought the evidence was in favor of evolution. It's not. The evidence is supporting the biblical account. Civilization begins 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. There's massive catastrophic flooding all over the world. We descend from one man and one woman. Humans are markedly different than the animal kingdom. I want you to think about that. Evolution says the same processes created dolphins and insects and trees and humans. Why are we so different and set apart from the animal kingdom with dominion over them? Why are we upright? Why don't we have hair or fur all over our bodies like the animals do? Why do we put them in a zoo? There's no zoos for humans, right? I mean, except for the ones that we put ourselves in, which is horrible. But we're different. The Bible says we're made in the image of the living God with dominion over the animals. That's what the data says. The data supports the biblical account. And if you disagree, then come in here and tell me where the data supports evolution. It'd be exciting. Why the lies? We came from two people and family has been sleeping together since day one. Yeah. What is that? Where's that a lie? Yeah, we've been sleeping together since day one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, one man and one woman. Everybody descends from them. Where's the lie? The lie is telling you that didn't happen. No, we didn't. Sure, Isaiah, except for the data supports that. Do you want to cover the data that supports that? I got one for you. You know what? We're going to do this. We're going to show you the data. We're going to talk to you about mitochondrial Eve. I know I told my guests I was going to bring them on. So give me about 5 minutes, hopefully, and I'll bring you on. I need to show you this here. I'm finding a video about mitochondrial Eve that we're going to talk about here for a second. Okay, so all humans descend from one man and one woman. This has been scientifically proven through something called mitochondrial DNA. There's a signature inside of mitochondrial DNA that is identical with every woman, which means that at some point there was a woman whose DNA ended up being the primary source DNA for all the women alive today. This specific part of the mitochondria, if you had a different DNA signature in there, then there would have been multiple matriarchal, ancestral lines, but there's one. So I want to show you how science tries to dismiss this, and it should only take me a couple minutes. So this is PBS Eons. I didn't know this, but PBS is funded by the federal government. So the government's actually lying to you with your taxpayer dollars, which is fun. Okay.
With the help of well-dated fossils and even the DNA of ancient fossil humans. And the data suggests that this happened around 70,000 years ago. And going back even further, it appears that all known haplogroups converge at a single female ancestor who lived roughly 200,000 years ago. So our mitochondrial ancestor can tell us a great deal about where we came from and when. But we also have to talk about what she can't tell us. She isn't the first woman of our species, or the first anatomically modern human, or anyone really special for that matter.
Trust me, it's not Eve. It's definitely not Eve, right? With his hands up, not Eve. Okay, so show me some data. Why isn't it Eve?
For one thing, there's evidence of modern humans as far back as 300,000 years ago in northern Africa.
Okay, so we have humans that are 300,000 years old based on stratigraphy and radiometric dating. We'll get back to that. So and she's 200,000 years old. We need to cover both of those because she's not. There's no timestamp on when she lived. There's actually no evidence of mitochondrial Eve. We don't know what she looked like. We don't have her fossil. So they have no idea how old she is. They use something called a molecular clock, which actually points to her having existed much more recently, around 6,500 years ago. So we'll cover that next.
We know our species was around long before this woman lived, for thousands of generations.
So he's saying one of the pieces of evidence why she isn't the first one is science believes there were humans that existed before her based on the date that they came up with, based on the dates they come up with radiometric dating. So again, we're going to address the dates here in a minute.
But their mtDNA just didn't make it to the present day. The fact that
but their mtDNA just didn't make it to the present day. I don't know, I'm not a body language guy, but I'm curious if you guys can feel intuitively when you know somebody's lying. I know this is subjective, But watch the way he's speaking. Tell me if it looks like he's being honest with you. Watch this.
Who lived roughly 200,000 years ago. So our mitochondrial ancestor can tell us a great deal about where we came from and when. But we also have to talk about what she can't tell us. She isn't the first woman of our species, or the first anatomically modern human, or anyone really special for that matter. For one thing, there's evidence of modern humans as far back as 300,000 years ago in northern Africa.
And watch this next
So we know our species was around long before this woman lived, for thousands of generations. But their mtDNA just didn't make it to the present day.
Okay. So are we catching what he's saying here? Are you guys understanding this? We know humans are here before her, so it couldn't be her. She's not special, trust me. And we know that the other people that lived just died and didn't leave any evidence. Let me just explain this to you. I think it's Eve. No, it's not Eve. Why? Well, because we know humans are older. Okay, we'll cover the dating here in a minute. Okay, so if she's not thinking caps, everybody thinking caps. Wish I had a cap on, I'd put it on. Thinking caps, okay? If she's not the single, if there's 8 billion people alive today, let's say 4 billion women, and every one of them is related to the same person in the past, why don't you think she was the first person? They go, well, it's the wrong time frame. Which again, we're going to cover the dating. Fine. So what does that mean? If she's not the first human, really, think. If she's not the first human, then why aren't there any women alive today descended from another person? See? It's like, okay, she wasn't the first person. Okay, well, what happened to all the other people? What happened to all of the other mothers? What happened to all of the other women with their own different mitochondrial DNA? Why didn't they produce offspring? What happened? Right? You guys see the problem here? Well, he addresses it. Don't worry. He addresses it because science is about post hoc rationalization. How do we make the theory fit with the data that we have? Watch this.
The fact that one woman passed on her mitochondrial genome to all of us is really just a matter of chance.
Yeah,
Think of it this way. In any given generation, a woman might have sons but not daughters.
Sure.
And if she only has sons, that means none of her mitochondrial DNA will get passed on.
Sure.
So our mitochondrial ancestor is the only person who managed to have one or more female offspring, who in turn also had female offspring in an unbroken line for the past 200,000 years by sheer chance.
Did you guys follow that? Listen again.
In any given generation, a woman might have sons, but not...
I'll go back.
For one thing, there's evidence of modern humans as far back as 300,000 years ago in northern Africa. So we know our species was around long before this woman lived, for thousands of generations. But their mtDNA just didn't make it to the present day. The fact that one woman passed on her mitochondrial genome to all of us is really just a matter of chance.
Yeah.
Think of it this way.
What are the odds?
In any given generation, a woman might have sons, but not daughters. And if she only has sons, that means none of her mitochondrial DNA will get passed on. So our mitochondrial ancestor is the only person who managed to have one or more female offspring, who in turn also had female offspring in an unbroken line for the past 200,000 years.
Okay. This is what they want you to believe. Okay? This is only, let's look at how many pairs we have. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pairs of reproducing humans. Okay? 8 women. Here's what they want you to believe. There were millions or hundreds of thousands of women, and they were all reproducing. But in this case, with only 8 women, gray lady, she had 1 daughter. That was it. Okay? These 2, I guess, whatever. Oh, she had a daughter. Daughter had a daughter. Daughter had a daughter. And then she died. Okay, so their family died off. And she had a daughter, and then she didn't have a daughter. And then she had a daughter, and then she didn't have a daughter. And then she had a daughter that went over here, and then they went over there, and they were having theirs, and they came over, and then they died. They all died. The orange people died, right? So gray lady died, all of her family. Blue lady died. Pink lady died. Green lady died. Her children died. Daughters died. The green one died. The pink one never had one. Okay. In this scenario, only the white girl, it's funny, racist, only the white girl, so she had 2 daughters, right? The 2 daughters lived on, and these 2 daughters went on too. So in this generation, this lady had 2 daughters, and they both made it. And every one of these other women either didn't have daughters or their daughters died out, like this right here. That's the end of the pink line. That's the end of the orange line. Now, I want you to think about this. They think that at the time that this, love you more. They think that at the time that mitochondrial Eve existed, there may have been 100,000 women. So you want me to believe, just so you can get away from this Eve scenario, you want me to believe that none of the other 100,000 women had daughters that lived. Every other daughter they had died. Or they only had boys. Or maybe they had a daughter, but they all died. They all died. And it's just a random chance. It's just a chance. It's just nothing special about it. It's just a million. It's a 1 in a million chance, but way greater. Like, I would love a statistician. If anybody is a statistician in here, and you can help me with some, I want to do a bunch of these kind of odds kind of things. Reach out to me, DM me. If there were 10,000 women alive, which I think they think there was, you know what, let's look at this really quickly. Let's Google this together. How many women were alive when mitochondrial Eve was alive? Let's see here. There's no exact number, but thousands of women were alive when mitochondrial Eve lived. However, only her maternal line survived to the present day. She was not the only woman alive at the time, but every other woman's maternal lineage eventually ended through a woman who only had sons or a woman who died childless. Which is, they don't have any data of this. Let me explain something very clearly to you. They don't have any data for this. There's no evidence of the not mitochondrial Eves, the whitochondrial Eve and the greenochondrial Eve and the pinkochondrial Eve. There's no evidence about them. There's no fossils of them. There's no evidence that they lived and died and they didn't have fucking children. There's no evidence of any of this. They just don't want Eve to be true. It's like, it had to have happened. Had to have happened. Yeah. Thousands. So somebody that does a statistics, what are the chances that there's thousands of women, let's say 5,000 women, and 4,999 of them either don't have daughters or their children died? Because like, a lot of people have like 6 and 8 daughters. Everybody that's here in this room right now had a family member that was a part of 2 and 3 and 4 and 6 and 8 sisters. Okay? They want you to believe 10,000 women, their offspring, maybe they had 4 women, all died. None of them had children. Maybe they had whatever. Maybe the next one had 12. Each time they have 4 and then 6 because of exponential growth, the chances become greater and greater and greater. The chances that of all of these thousands of women, that none of them had a continual matrilineal bloodline to today is astronomical. It's astronomical. It's like, I would say it's likely statistically impossible. I would guess it's probably close to that. Like 1 in 10 to the 230th power, something like that. And this he just goes, oh, this is not special. Yeah, they all just died. Yeah, all of them. We don't have the data, but they all died because we know. You know what we know? It's not Eve. We know that because the Bible isn't true. So they just died. Yep, science. Okay. Now that you've learned about this, I'm going to rewind this 1 minute for you to watch this again. And I want you to watch the bullshittery. I want you to watch his hand movements. Go, it's not important. These guys are magicians. It's not important. No. Who cares? It's science. I don't care. The Bible isn't true. We don't have the data. We don't care about data. We have a theory. We have a theory. It doesn't matter. It wasn't Eve. Okay? Watch him do this magic act again. Very same thing as the actor Bill Nye. It's the same thing. Watch this.
Left Africa. And the data suggest that this happened around 70,000 years ago. And going back even further, it appears that all known haplogroups converge at a single female ancestor who lived roughly 200,000 years ago. So our mitochondrial ancestor can tell us a great deal about where we came from and when. But we also have to talk about what she can't tell us. She isn't the first woman of our species, or the first anatomically modern human, or anyone really special for that matter. For one thing, there's evidence of modern humans as far back as 300,000 years ago in northern Africa. So we know our species was around long before this woman lived, for thousands of generations. But their mtDNA just didn't make it to the present day. The fact that one woman passed on her mitochondrial genome to all of us is really just a matter of chance. Think of it this way. In any given generation, a woman might have sons but not daughters. And if she only has sons, that means none of her mitochondrial DNA will get passed on. So our mitochondrial ancestor is the only person who managed to have one or more female offspring, who in turn also had female offspring in an unbroken line for the past 200,000 years, by sheer chance. Now, naturally, there are a lot of limitations to what mtDNA can tell us. The dates it provides us aren't very precise, and the genomes themselves are small, representing a tiny fraction of the information that's in our whole genome. And of course, they only tell us about half the population, females. So while mtDNA was crucial as an early source of genetic data, as sequencing methods started to improve, scientists began studying the other non-recombining stretch of DNA, the Y chromosome.
And guess what?
And much of this work was done in the early 2000s. And just as mtDNA can shed light on the growth and spread of certain maternal bloodlines, the Y chromosome can tell us about the migration patterns of some groups of men. For example, a pair of studies in 2010...
No, it's not some studies and some men. It's the same thing. It's the same situation. All men descend from one man, Y chromosomal Adam. Watch this. Do all men alive descend from Y chromosomal Adam? Do not descend from a single man. Yes, they do, but rather from a Y chromosomal most recent common ancestor. Okay, so there wasn't a man again. Here we go. Watch this. Who is the most recent male from whom all living males are descended through an unbroken line of male ancestors. This is not a biblical Adam, and this was not the first human, but rather one of many people living at the time. Yeah, okay, same thing. It's the same thing. It's like, no, it wasn't one man. There's a lot of men. Sure, what happened? Oh, they all died. What about their sons? Oh, they all died too. Yep. What data do you have for this? It's not Adam. We discovered that it's not Adam. Now, let's look at the time frame. Guy says, 200,000 years ago, this happened. Yeah, okay. Let's see your science on this. You ready for this thing? This is the craziest... I'm going to show you the craziest piece of science right now. Mitlock, there it is. I found it quicker than I ever have found it before. Okay, watch this. Okay, so homeboy, actually, let me flip my camera around real fast. Okay, so homeboy goes, we know it was 200,000 years ago. You do? Was she? There's Mitochondrial Eve, who you don't know who she is. You found her, and you dated her? How'd you do that? Fucking Sherlock. Ready for this? We have them. Watch this. Okay. How does science know how old Mitochondrial Eve is? Close enough, right? How does science know this? Go ahead, Google, do your thing. Science knows the approximate age of Mitochondrial Eve by comparing the mitochondrial DNA of modern humans, which is passed down from one mother to child. Scientists trace the accumulated mutations in this DNA from the present back to a common ancestor using it as a molecular clock. They use something called the molecular clock. Right? So 100 to 200,000 years ago. Well, this number is always moving. It's always moving because this is a very loose kind of science. And I'm happy to look into the different dates they've had. Adam and Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam lived at totally different times. No, they probably lived at the same time. This actually happened very recently. Actually, do it this way. Did Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam live at the same time? I'm great at typing. No, Mitochondrial Eve and Y chromosomal Adam did not live at the same time. Studies suggest their lifespans were closer than previously thought, though, like live in Africa tens of thousands of years ago. The most recent common female ancestor for all living humans estimated to live between 99 and 200,000, while Y chromosomal Adam lived 120,000 to 156,000. Look at this, though. More recently, Stanford Medicine, common genetic ancestors lived during roughly the same period, science finds. This is 2013. So they don't live at the same time, they do live at the same time, they live at different times, whatever. They don't know because they're using something called a molecular clock. Now, let's look at the molecular clock. A high observed substitution rate in the human mitochondrial DNA control region. This is game over. This is game over. If you want to be like that asshole that was just on here and go, it's not Adam and Eve. We know this because we don't like the Bible, right? If you want to do that, it's fine. But if you want to look at the actual empirical science, watch this. The rate and pattern of sequence substitutions in the mitochondrial control region is of central importance to the study of human evolution and to forensic identity testing. Here we report a direct measurement of the intergenerational substitution rate in the human control region. We compare DNA sequences of two variable regions, 134 lines, giving us a number of 1/33 generations, 2.5 per year. This is roughly 20-fold higher than estimates from phylogenetic analysis. Okay, so go to the abstract here, or the discussion. Here we go. Let me make this a little bit bigger. This is so important, you guys. I can't wait for you to learn this information. You want to say that it's not. Okay, we already discovered that the genetic isopoint was exactly in the biblical time frame, 4,500 to 7,500 years ago. Now watch this. The observed substitution rate reported here is very high compared to rates inferred from evolutionary studies, which means that if the theory were true, The theory of evolution predicted that the substitution rate should happen at this rate. Substitution rate is basically when these mutations are adopted into the genome. A wide range of CR substitutions have been derived from phylogenetic studies spanning 0.025 and 0.26 at a site per million years. So they had studies before that garnered these numbers, including confidence intervals, whatever. A study yielding one of the faster evidence estimates gave the substitution rate at 0.118 to plus or minus 0.031 at a site per million years. These are the important things. Okay, the first site, I got to stand up and show you this. Based on phylogenetic tree, this is the number of the substitution rate. It sounds complicated, but it's not. You guys are going to learn some science here. So 0.025 to 0.26. This is the error margin, right? So 2 cents to 26 cents. Think of it that way. 2 cents to 26 cents, which is the quantity, at a site per million years. A study yielding one of the faster evidences gave right around 11 cents, plus or minus 3 cents. So 11, 8 to 14 cents. Assuming a generation time of 20 years, which is the generation time we know that humans populate. You have children when you're 20 to 25 years. This corresponds to 1/600 generations and an age for the mitochondrial DNA, most recent common ancestor, of 133,000 years. So when he goes 200,000 years, he's using the mitochondrial DNA molecular clock. So if you use this date, you get 133,000 years. This is why the date keeps changing, but watch this. Thus, our observation of the substitution rate at 2.5 at a site per million years. Again, 2 cents to 26 cents, 11 cents. They had $2.50 worth, right? It's 2.5 at a site per million years. Is roughly 20-fold higher than would be predicted from phylogenetic analysis. So based on evolution and phylogeny and common ancestry. Using our empirical rate. This is an empirical rate. This isn't speculative. They looked at 160 generational events. They documented this very clearly. They wanted this number because this is what fits with science. If you have this number, you can get the mitochondrial DNA to 133,000 years, but they didn't get 11 cents. They got $2.50. What does that 20-fold higher estimate reveal as far as when mitochondrial Eve would have lived here? Watch this. Using our empirical rate to calibrate the mitochondrial DNA molecular clock would result in an age of the most recent common ancestor, which is mitochondrial Eve, of only 6,500 years. Oh, yeah? Yeah. Which is clearly incompatible with the known age of modern humans, just like asshole said. We know she's not mid, she's 200,000 years old, and humans are 300,000 years old. Blah, blah, blah. Even acknowledging that the most recent common ancestor of mitochondrial DNA may be younger than that of modern humans, it remains implausible to explain the known geographic distribution of mtDNA sequence variation by human migration that occurred in only the last 6,500 years. Which means that they just are hand-waving it away. They say no. Nope. No. Impossible. So we're going to tell a story that it's not Eve. We're just going to say we don't care about empirical data because it sounds like the Bible is true. People don't want to see the study. Here it is. A high observed substitution rate in the human mitochondrial DNA control region. Look it up yourself. Nature magazine. This is empirical science. The date that they wanted mitochondrial Eve to have lived, which is the 200,000 year number that Homeboy was trying to say, isn't compatible with the data. The data shows that the substitution rate is actually, remember I was using money because we understand money, $2.50 at a site per million year versus 0.2 cents, so 2 cents to 26 cents. It's 20-fold higher. Take that same number, which is how often do these, let me explain how important this is. Let me get this back up here. Okay. How do you get that number? You go the original human to the huge disparity of substitutions that have happened. So one lady has 1 million, one lady has 100, one lady has 1,000, whatever it is. If you trace back to when and this is what you can do, you can go at one point, when did every one of these women that are alive have the substitutions that were all the same? So go back to the original person and then know at what rate do the substitutions occur. If you know the rate that they occur and you know how many substitutions have happened, you can find out when mitochondrial Eve was here. They did this in the number 6,500 years. 6,500 years, which again, I'm going to dovetail that with the genetic isopoint, which I showed you mathematically, the genetic isopoint was 4,400 to 7,300 years ago. So science has shown that at one point, all humans were related to two ancestors through genealogic modeling. This is the work of Chang and Rhodes, modeling the ancestry of all humans, I think is the paper. The common ancestor that we all are all related to based on genealogy, based on the rate of reproduction that we know, 4,400 to 7,300 years ago, in that time frame. Hard stop. Empirical science. If you want to believe there was individuals that lived before that, they all died. The ones that we're related to were here in that time frame. Then based on the molecular clock, which is how they date Mitochondrial Eve, based on the substitution rate that they found, which was, again, let me show you this again. We compared DNA sequences of two hypervariable segments from close maternal relatives from 134 mtDNA lineages spanning 327 generational events. This isn't a small data sample. This is a huge data sample. Hasn't been reproduced because they didn't like the answer. It's like, holy shit. Eve can't have been here 6,500 years ago. We don't like this. This isn't what we want. It's crazy. What do you think of that?